All right. Well, I need to start on what Arizona means to me. I was born in the Midwest in Minnesota. At the age of 16, we took a trip with my mother. And when I first saw Arizona, I felt like I had come home. And especially going down what is Highway 93 was a two-lane road at that time. And especially going past Meadview, we didn't go there. When I returned back to Minnesota, I was only 16, and I told my dad I was moving to Arizona. Of course, what do you do at 16, you know? And the topography was very different. 10,000 lakes, rolling hills, no mountains, and lots of trees. But at 18, I loaded up a Volkswagen bus and headed for Arizona. The rest is history. We traveled about here and there, and Meadview was being developed in the 60s. When I turned 21, of course, the first place you go is Las Vegas, and they were promoting Meadview. We got a free trip up here, and we purchased land. For whatever reason, this area called me, and it was home. So, young as we were, we still had to make a living. But we started building on the property we bought, because we could afford it, and we go back and forth to California to make enough living to build, and we finally relocated in total. Meadview was very small, 300 people. I knew the original developers, both of them, and I knew the Huffers. The road to Meadview was rough. The road to South Cove was rough. We watched it being paved. My time here was exceptional. This is home. I've been on almost every corner of Meadview. We fished, we water skied. I was into history. Did whatever we could to make a living and stay here. Mary McBee, who wrote The Land of Long Shadows, a history book of the Grapevine Mesa, was my friend, and I traveled with her. I helped, at that time I was a photographer, and I helped photograph and copy print way back when you had to copy print some of the history. I knew Dale Smith, the owner of the Diamond Bar Ranch, which is now Grand Canyon Western Ranch. The road to Grand Canyon was a rough, old four-wheel drive road, but we made many trips up there and could camp. The two young men that developed Meadview had a vision of how this community should develop. When they purchased the land here in Meadview, it was a purchase through the railroads, because every other section was owned by the railroad. Federal government wanted the railroads to come west. That's how they ended up with the property here. Many sections along what I call the rim and what was private property. When National Park Service realized that there would be houses that you could see from the lake, they made a proposal to the developers of Meadview. They would do an exchange. That property along the rim in exchange for the interior property close to what they had as the first development of Meadview. So that's what happened. And now Meadview is surrounded by National Park Service, in the system. It is Lake Mead National Recreation Area. Grand Canyon National Park is what we see from our windows when we look north, the Lower Granite Gorge. And also the Area of Critical Environmental Concern, which is a Bureau of Land Management property. They knew what they were doing way back, in the 60s. That's pretty amazing that they understood we have to offer something here. What will this be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? So I've been here 54 years. Even though we had a second home in Alaska, we always had a home here. I met Marvin 23 years ago. He and his wife were I mean, not 23 years, Marvin, in 1972, he and his wife were our good friends. And his wife passed, my husband passed. Marvin and I just decided, well, we should be married, you know? So 23 years ago, we got married and continued to travel, but this was always home. The community is, I believe, is growing in a positive way. Those same developers built that building in the middle of town called the Meadview Civic Association as a membership association. They felt they needed a central place to meet. When Bob and Marianne Huffer came to Meadview, they built what is now Gas and Grub. It was called Huffer's Market. Marianne was a school teacher in Dolan Springs. Her two sons went to school there, and her daughter was born right here in Meadview. I'm still very good friends with all of the family. Bob and Marianne are now gone. Meadview had at one time a performing arts community, and we had little plays at the MCA. We've had festivals, celebrating our 25th anniversary years ago. It is pretty much the same community, but in a different, I guess, taking a different curve in a way, because our lake is low, but there is so much here. It would be, my hope would be to see it grow with younger people, such as yourself, Joe, and younger children. Growing up in an area that's open, natural, is where I think our youth needs to go. In 1983, I'm going to go back to that year, because that year Lake Mead flooded. It was going over the dam. Previously, it was really high and wonderful. We were quite busy. But when that lake got high, we were very busy. There were lots of people coming out to enjoy the lake. Second homes, a number of second homes here. And some of the people that live here now, their parents had their home as a second home. There would be Memorial Weekend, 4th of July, Labor Day. You would have to launch your boat, park as you go down the lake, down South Cove. You would have to park all the way up past the restrooms and walk back down to your boat. It was that busy. And the gas station was busy. Huffer's Market was very busy. When you're coming up through Meadview, you notice that little community of Lake Mead City. Okay, at that time, when the lake was so busy, the gas station was active there, so we actually had 3 gas stations at one time in Meadview. We have one now. There was a little restaurant there, and where Ma's Market was the developer's sales office for just that square mile, Lake Mead City. And they were very busy as well. There was bait and tackle sold at that Frenchie's, what was called Frenchie's, and that was a gas station. He also had a tire changing. He did mechanic work. Further on up, if you come down the road towards Meadview, on the left-hand side, you see a building that is modern, kind of modern looking. It's on the left-hand side, and it has big flags flying now. That originally was just a single building, and it was also a bait and tackle. So if you go back that many years, there were 3 places you could buy bait and tackle. Give you an idea how busy we were for lake activities. On the right-hand side, across from the dollar store, was another little motel, pizza and deli place, and that was very busy as well. Right next door to it, that big building with the arches, was a lounge, a grocery store, bait and tackle. So to give you an idea how many businesses were going at that time, and then of course Huffer's Market was the main market. Huffer's provided, in total they had fresh produce. They would order special, and the first post office was in that building. And yes, we were busy. I also managed the store there for a while to make a living, and we were very busy. All the businesses were busy. We had another little pizza place and another little bakery place where the real estate office is. Across from the landing was a little bakery. So it was busy. The lake was very crowded during holidays. And a lot of people bought property here as a second home. Some of those homes, well, many of those homes are still here. Later on, I went into real estate to make money instead of, just not money, buying groceries. And even during the Gulf War, because of the uniqueness of Meadview and the creativity of our real estate offices, not just mine, we did very well. In fact, I had 2 realtors with $1 million producers back in the Gulf War. Yeah. So it's always been a unique place to live. But at that time, it was very, very busy with boats and, all of that. So we had dances at the MCA. There were picnics. We had at that, the Crow's Nest wasn't the Crow's Nest, it was called the Chart Room, and there was many events there as well. So it was a busy place, and a full mechanic shop. We have a full mechanic shop now, but there was one right downtown. So yeah, it was busy.
What's the population out here now?
I would say, if I remember right, Jonathan told me 1,500 to 2,000.
Full-time year-round?
Fluctuates. I think about 900 full-time, which you would call full-time as a permanent address. There might be more. I know all of the post office boxes are gone, so that's pretty good. Then there's the route. So it is continuing to grow, and because it is a special place. You don't find many places that are within national parks where you're not going to be looking at skyscrapers, and that our dark sky will stay dark. So I think that's what's drawing people here now. It's a little different. You don't see the big boats like we used to. Now the boating group now is small boats, and kayakers love it here. It's quite a kayaking group. And I was one of them till Marvin, I can't now, so don't do that now. But they're very active. They have amazing kayaking water here. And fishing is incredible. You've got to be able to get your boat in the water. And I think you'll continue to do that for a long time, depending on the size of your boat. The backcountry roads are designated, and Park Service has many backcountry roads. So side-by-side and ATVs have amazing opportunities. As you go south in Meadview, there's also BLM roads that are approved for backcountry driving and riding. Many mines. This was also a mining district back in the late 1800s. The King Tut mine, you may have seen the road that says King Tut. Okay. It was actually a mine here. It was a very productive mine. When I first moved here, there was a huge bunkhouse. Still, it was no longer occupied, but it was still there. And that was the King Tut mine. A good producer. Going back way in the history, long before I came here, there was this ferry. You know where the lookout is? Okay. That road that you see was a ferry, Greg's Ferry. And then another ferry, Scanlon Ferry, and then Pierce Ferry. And the people that owned the ferry at Greg's, which is straight down from the overlook, had a farm and a ranch, and they'd shuttle people back and forth to Nevada. That road was how they got into the main center, and that was chloride actually, not Kingman. When they wanted to go shopping and stock up, their old vehicles had to be pulled up that road by their mules or their horses, and then turned loose, and the horses or the mules would go back to the ranch because they had no problem going down. Yeah, and Diamond Bar Ranch is an old ranch as well. It was in the 1800s. It has lots of springs, 5 springs. Those are deeded springs, so you own the water rights. And first was owned by a man named Starkey, and then the Duncans, and then the Smiths bought it, and it was a wonderful ranch. He made money on it. Dale Smith was a young man when he and his father bought that ranch. He was able to buy the ranch by his winnings from the rodeo. He was a rodeo champion, Cowboy Hall of Fame, along with his horse, Poker Chip. And I knew Dale. He used to fly up here when I was in real estate. We worked together on some of his private property. And he would coast up the highway in his plane and park behind the real estate office. Some of the miners that lived across the river would fly in, and to that airport, they kept a car there. Then they'd come down to Huffer's Market to do their shopping instead of going that rough road all the way into either Mesquite or Las Vegas. So they'd shop here, and they would order from Bob Huffer what they needed, and they would fly in. So one time there was a movie filmed there, and I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was filmed on that airstrip. There was a film produced along the old Diamond Bar Road, which was all gravel let down, From Here to Eternity. Have you heard of it? It was filmed, and it was filmed all the way up to where the skywalk is now. That was a guano mine. They mined bat guano. The big tramway was there, and they filmed up there with the, swinging out over the tramway. From the tramway, they would take the buckets into the mine, the guano mine, and harvest the bat guano for fertilizer and bring it back and market it. I've been up to that mine, in that mine, years and years and years ago, when the river and the lake were high. You could actually hike up to that mine. So back in the 1930s, they realized how important the land was here, contiguous to the Grand Canyon National Park. What was a national park? First national park. And so they included that in a national recreation area. So by the 60s, they had preserved this, what you know now. They also had proposed further down, which would have put the Joshua Tree Forest in a national park, but it didn't make it because of funding. So that is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. And the Joshua Tree Forest has always been a very special place for our community. Years and years ago, a man named Fred Wilson wrote a letter and a proposal to the administration at that time to include it in a national monument. And again, it didn't make it. Bureau of Land Management, through the community's proactive push to preserve it further, started exchanging land so that it would block up more of the private land. And by doing that, National Park Service then did take 5 sections and give it a National Natural Landmark designation. Even though it is BLM land, it has that higher designation. We kept pushing for further protection, knowing we would develop. And by the community's activities and pushing for whatever we could, finally in 1993, it was designated as an area of critical environmental concern, which gives the Bureau of Land Management priority in managing it, not just for the resources, but for the natural resources, for people to walk and enjoy it, not just for extraction. So that protected it further from mining or oil wells. When they built the road from the new road, Sharon Baur Road, and paved it. They had to come and get permission, and the community wanted to make sure that they didn't destroy very many trees. Some were destroyed, which we didn't like, and we understood paving the road would help our Native American neighbors, and we did want that. And in fact, less dust would be better for the trees in the gravel road. And so that's how that came about. We've always been very proactive in preserving what we have here. As I said, 2 miles, if you go 2 miles to the east, you will come to the boundary of the area of critical environmental concern. And then a little over 2 miles, you're at the boundary of the Grand Canyon National Park and the Lower Grand Gorge. So that is to me, it's a comfortable feeling that we have that. Even in the state of Alaska, which has a lot of land that is preserved, in our small little community, I would watch things being built up because we weren't up against refuges or national parks. Our refuges were out in the ocean or further to the north of us. And it is extremely important. National Park Service knows that. We hope to have a volunteer parks program again to help with some of the people that have gone off the designated roads, but because they didn't know. So education, all about education. Jack and Suzanne Newell, which I hope you can interview at some point down the road. Actually, Mary McBee started the Explorers Club, and then Jack and Suzanne took it over, and now Joan Stoops leads it. They know the history. They've been on the roads, and they know where to take you. There is a road out here to the east that is off the designated path, and it bothers us, the community, a great deal. National Park Service has a new supervisor, and they're interested, and there's a meeting coming up for volunteers to be trained. I can't attend, we'll be up at Flagstaff, but I'll be in close contact with them. I will be doing a tour at a later time to show some of the locals. I did that already, just impromptu. Earth Day, I just called 3 friends and said, hey, you want to go for a ride? Actually 4 friends, but one couldn't make it, so we went for a little ride on the boundaries. And once they saw that, and I had my maps with me, it is truly all education. Understanding this area is unique, it's so different. It's very confusing. Rumors start. So anything we can do before our older community passes on, to pass this along to the newer generation so they can have that same feeling to know what needs to be protected and move forward with our community. Personally, I would love to see a school that would probably be like a charter school, but very much following the lines of the Prairie Wetlands Learning Center in Minnesota, where you learn from nature. All of the curriculum you learn from nature. There is a group of educators that would love to see that too. That's probably my priority. I would like to see more medical here, of course, and our fire department back up. But for the future of Meadview, we need that. We need the young people. We need people your age, the educators I've met, and their children, to give them a sense of something to do. If you're not they think there's nothing to do if you're not on social media, or if you're not at a game. Games are great, don't get me wrong there, but learning the other side of it, learning to be independent of all of that. I grew up on a ranch, so I have a different perspective, perhaps. Marvin grew up out in nature and outdoors. So all of that, I think, makes a huge difference to how children look at the world and understand how they can survive on their own and how we've been given this world, how to steward it. The educators that are interested in doing that, they're interested in staying here. They might go away for a while to get some experience, but they'll come back. I have done some research working with them, that there are grants available. And I can't see why it couldn't happen when there is school in the Aleutian Islands with 10 students. We have 100 children here that go to Mount Timt. It'd be wonderful if they could go all 8 grades here. I grew up one-room school, all 8 grades. We learn from each other. That would be my priority. Yes, we need maybe a gym or something like that too, but priorities are children. Yeah. This section of land right to the east of us is owned by the public. It's mostly national park. But however, along the road there's still some private land. When we bought this, the first thing I did with our realtor was say, I want to buy that. And they wouldn't talk to us. And I just kept trying. And then all of a sudden, somebody came up and started what I don't approve of, decimating it. He was going to build a McMansion there until he heard the lake going down. I continue to correspond with him, although he's quit corresponding with me, to see if he would donate it to National Park, because I don't think he'd ever sell it for the amount of money he has in there. But most of it is National Park, with in-holdings of private land, mostly along the road. I'm hoping National Park, now that there's a different supervisor, that they can start tapping into the Land and Water Conservation Fund available to our federal agencies to purchase some of this land. Meantime, I'll keep trying to get them interested in donating it. So that's what happened there. A little history about Arizona's real estate. Long ago, developers could come in and develop a section of land on paper only, not guaranteeing anything. And they would sell to people very far away. Arizona land is surrounded by all this that you can't get to. So that was what you hear sometimes about the Arizona land fraud. And, they'd be hanging off the cliff, whatever. And so consequently, where the ACEC is, there is quite a bit of private land. It is in little 1.25 acre sections. There's not too much concern about that because you couldn't get to it. Some of it is too close and would be wonderful, but you'd have to tap into the Land and Water. Now, National Park Service probably has availability better than BLM to purchase some of this here. And they have done so much to purchase so much of it. It needs a little push from the community again. Let's get this going. Let's tap into the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's available for us if we show that it needs to happen. And right now is a good time to do that. I've understood that they're going to try and do what they can down to 1040. That's the elevation of the lake. Then it would be very remote launching. At that time they're going to try and keep improving it. I don't know how they will provide us with more water. I mean, it's the drought, of course, but overuse. And what will happen there? They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to make some hard decisions, and where that will lead us as far as the lake. Now, as far as our groundwater here, we don't have to worry about that. Meadview is on its own aquifer. It's not in the aquifer down in the lower valley. It's our own aquifer, several of them, anywhere from 800 to 1,200 feet deep. It's an old aquifer, and another reason for protecting all of this that we can. Not having agriculture here, not having big commercial properties here, right on the mesa, that is. There's going to be some down below, I know, because we do have the water now. Should last us our lifetime and into the younger people's. Behind us, the Grand Wash Cliffs, of course, all of this at one time was temperate rainforest. And as it changed, then those cliffs actually, it fell into the mesa. And there's, over here is a very, very extinct volcano. So it was an active place. And if you are hiking out there, sometimes you run across shells, fossilized shells. Of course, the Native Americans used it 2,000 years ago. Up the river is a sloth cave. Sloths, giant sloths, lived here. When I worked with the National Park Service as a volunteer, I was with the Grand Canyon volunteer up Lower Granite Gorge, and we would hike many of those caves. Sloth Cave has been gated off many years now because somebody went in and started a fire. It burned for a long time. But there are many caves and many historical sites, many archaeological sites up the river. It's a very, very old, millions, thousands of years. Can you imagine all the water that was here at one time? So the Palo Verde were put here from the original, in the courtyard from the original owners. This was probably here. They just built around it. She was an artist, and she was very hard to work for, I understand, because she had certain criteria, and one was to protect the desert landscape. And she brought in what had to be removed or protected, like the little Joshua trees, soap tree yuccas and things like that. She had them replaced. The lower vegetation, absolutely native, and a lot of it has come up since we moved here. We didn't move anything. Any seeds I see, I scatter them wherever. We did harvest some of the vegetable seeds, some of the marigold seeds for the Mount Tipton School, and show them how to spread those so that they grow native with, in back where they came from. We had a little class for them, so we did that. But like I said, some of these, the brittle bush, that one was here, but the rest of them have just started in the last 5 years.
Wow, it's quite beautiful.
Like I said, Huffer's Market was the first contract post office here. So we had to go to Dolan Springs to the post office. And packages, Dolan Springs. There was no UPS, no FedEx. Yeah, it was a little different. And the road was rough. So that's where we went. And Huffer put in the post office in his market, which is Gas and Grub now. Well, with that then, he contacted UPS and FedEx. You could drop packages here at the store. So that's how we got our packages. And then the new post office is amazing. It's just wonderful to have that available to us, and to mail big packages. And 2 years ago, when we were still unpacking from our trip down from Alaska, somehow my dear husband thought he was going to be fishing back in the ocean. He had tubs of gear. When I opened it, I go, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this? I contacted the refuge manager for Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. They are taking youth out into the Arctic to show them how to fish, how to launch boats. And I thought, oh my gosh, all this gear, they could use that. So I called him. He said, yeah, ship it up. I took it down to the post office. Edie's amazing how she packs stuff. And she took Harvin's heavy-duty waders. I mean, these are heavy-duty. She put stuff in there, rolled them down. It all went up to him, got there in fine shape, just like that. I'd have had to take it into Kingman, and it wouldn't have been done like that. So that's, it's huge to have that nice a post office here. I would see that the fire station will be manned again, if it will have to be. It was with our volunteers, with full service. It needs to come back, and I do see that happening. It takes the commitment to get. There's a push for that. Medical. I'm not too concerned about that. Our doctors are in Flagstaff, and in an emergency, we get emergency help into the hospital. But I would see a more active home health situation here. if I could win the lottery, I would make sure that there was a facility for the older people that come home and have to have some care until they are able to be in their homes, or at least have a daycare for our older people here. It would be nice to have the clinic back. We used to have a clinic, and that clinic could do lab work. If you cut your finger, if there was a little boating accident, if you put a fish hook up here, take care of those types of things. If you had a cold, if you have an infection, she could do that and order prescriptions, and they would come to her clinic. She was a physician's assistant and had a full clinic here, right where the waffle cone was. Yes. So I would see that that would need to happen, and I see it happening. It's just a push. And that's part of the history too, to understand that those services were here. And I know it's a different world, and I know budgets are tight. But explain to me, politician, when we had 300 people here, tops 600, we had a clinic, we had a fire station, and we had a deputy sheriff that lived here. Explain to me when the tax base wasn't what it is now. There are many nice homes here that have recently sold for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. It's got to be a higher tax base. Yes, we have more people. Yes, I know budget's been cut, but explain to me. I haven't heard that from anybody. Our home health director here is top notch. She's tough. She knows how to get what you need from those doctors, and she'll get it. Marvin had 4 weeks, 5 days a week, and that really helped me, get him back to where he is now. Unfortunately, they're so busy now that Betty couldn't get it. She couldn't get home health. So that needs to change, and I think it will. Investigating your insurances. What will they pay for a private, out of pocket, but they pay for it. I pay out of pocket for extra help here just to get him out to eat, exercise. Kathy Johnson comes and helps. And she's busy now too, but she will do that. Yeah, it is, but we're growing. It's got to change.
Yeah.
There again, push our elected officials. I've been here a long time, so I kind of know the ropes. I wish I knew more about the funding. I've learned a lot from volunteering for our public lands agencies. So that I know quite a bit about, getting the funding from them. But as far as the medical, I don't know that real well, or the education. But the educators that are here know that. Alan Long, he's a pretty sharp guy. He wants to make sure that he wants to live here, he wants to have a school here. And if he and his friends, Samantha and Josh, can make it happen, they'll push on it. We hope to get them back to hoping they can do this. There's a class, an opening on teaching educators how to go about having a charter school, and those classes are being held at the Prairie Wetlands Training Center. I just need to sit the 3 of them down, ask them if they're interested. If they are, let's sign them up. It would be in July. If they can do it this July, I have air miles that are going nowhere. We don't fly anymore. And I would provide them with the air miles to go there and back. And they would, stay at a VRBO or something and get that. How did you start the school? Where do you get the funding? How do you get the funding? The state of Arizona will provide funding for a charter school, and the curriculum doesn't have to follow the same state guidelines as a public school. So there you have it. Sam's been busy, Alan's been busy, so school's getting close to ending, and I would love to meet with them after I get back from Flagstaff this time. And say, okay, here's what's happening. Can you do it? If you can do it, let's book the flight right now. Get you back there. And even Jenny. she'd have a blast.
Hmm.
I've been to that school a couple of times for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And amazing energy, and they made me leave my cell phone in the building. I thought that was very cool.
Hmm.
Leave the cell phone.
Yes.
Yeah. I said, it's my camera. They said, leave the cell phone. Thank you for doing this. Oh my gosh. It is just wonderful.